Okay, so when you hear water wheel, what pops into your head? Probably a quaint little wooden mill next to a babbling brook, right? It's a nice image, but well, it's not the whole picture, not even close. We're going to look at the water wheel for what it really was, a total game changer. This was humanity's first real engine, our first big step in taming the power of nature itself. Seriously, think about this for a second. For pretty much all of human history, if you wanted to get something done, you had one option: muscle. Your muscles or an animal's muscles. That's it. So, how in the world do you build massive cities, or feed millions of people, or create an empire when your entire power grid, so to speak, needs to take a break and eat lunch?
The answer? It was brilliant, and it was flowing right past them. You harness a river. The water wheel was the moment we figured out how to take a natural force and turn it into real mechanical work on a huge scale. I mean, this was the original power grid, and honestly, it changed everything.
All right, so let's get into the technical evolution of this thing. Because it's not like someone just woke up one day and invented the perfect water wheel. No. This was a technology that grew and evolved over thousands of years all around the world, from these really simple lifters into what were basically ancient power grids.
And what's so cool is that the story doesn't even start with generating power. It starts with a much simpler problem, just lifting water. You've got things like the shaduf in Mesopotamia, basically a big lever with a bucket. Then you get the sakya in Egypt, which is a bit more complex, using animals and gears. Each of these little inventions, whether in Greece or way over in China, was like one more piece of a giant puzzle. They were all figuring out how to move water, long before they cracked the code on how to get power from it.
So all that tinkering, all those early attempts, they eventually led to this, the real water wheel, a machine that wasn't just about moving water, but about using water to power other machines. And as this idea spread, you basically got two different operating systems that popped up all over the ancient world. Okay, so on one hand, you had the horizontal wheel, sometimes called the Greek mill. Super simple to build, great for a fast-moving stream, but it didn't give you a whole lot of power. The real leap forward was the vertical axis wheel, which the Roman engineers really perfected. Now, this one was more complicated to build, for sure, but it was way more powerful, way more adaptable. And it got even better when they added one absolutely critical upgrade. So this is where it gets really clever. The early version, the undershot wheel, was pretty basic. The water just flows underneath and pushes the paddles to the bottom. It works, but it's not super efficient. But then you get the overshot wheel, and this was a stroke of absolute genius. Instead of pushing from the bottom, you channel the water to the top of the wheel. Now gravity is doing most of the work, pulling the buckets down. This simple change made it up to 40% more efficient. And when you add gears to that system to make it go faster, boom, you just turned a simple tool into a legitimate industrial engine.
Okay, so now that we have this amazing, evolving technology, what do we do with it? Well, ancient civilizations started using it to solve some of their biggest, most pressing problems. I mean, this wasn't just some cool new gadget. This was about survival, about growth.
And problem number one, the big one, was always food. I mean, as your population gets bigger, how do you feed everybody? It took an incredible amount of work, from watering the fields to the absolutely grueling, back-breaking job of grinding all that grain into flour by hand. And this is where the water wheel became the hero of the story, tackling the food problem in two amazing steps. First, you had machines like the dragon bone wheel in China and the noria in Egypt that just automated irrigation. They could lift water day and night, turning dry land into fertile farmland. Then, after the harvest, water-powered mills took over part two, automatically grinding all that grain into flour. So, just how much food are we talking about?
Get a load of this number, 28 tons.
So where does that crazy number come from? A Roman site in France called Barbagal. This place was basically an ancient industrial factory. It had 16 of those high-tech overshot water wheels, all lined up, grinding 28 tons of flour every single day. That's enough to feed an entire city, and it was all powered by one little aqueduct.
But this was about way more than just food. The ancient world had another major bottleneck, and that was industry. Think about it. Making anything, from metal tools to clothes to lumber, was limited by how strong a blacksmith was, or how fast a weaver could move their hands.
And then water power comes along and just shatters those limits. The jump in productivity was just off the charts. You suddenly had a power source that was strong, continuous, and never got tired. It could do things that no human or animal ever could, and it completely changed the game. And you can see this happening all over the world. Check this out.
Way back in Han Dynasty China, a guy named Du Shi invents water-powered bellows for making iron. This meant hotter furnaces, better metal. Fast forward a few centuries, and in the Song Dynasty, they've got these huge water-powered machines spinning textiles on 32 spindles at once. I mean, from sawmills to making paper, the water wheel was powering a full-blown early-stage industrial revolution across the globe.
So, okay, we've seen the tech and we've seen the problems it solved, but what was the bigger picture? What was the impact on society as a whole? Because this wasn't just about making things faster. This was about changing the very structure of civilization.
You know, I love this quote from a poet in the Tang Dynasty, Chen Tingzhang. It really gets to the heart of how people must have felt about this technology. They didn't just see it as a machine. They saw it as a partner, something that worked with nature to make their lives better. You can just feel the sense of wonder, and maybe even relief in those words.
And the ripple effects just spread out everywhere. It's like a chain reaction, right? More food means you can have bigger cities. Mass production means you have more stuff to trade, which creates whole new economies. It even creates new jobs. Suddenly you need a professional miller or a mechanic who knows how to fix these things. And of course, as people and goods travel on routes like the Silk Road, the ideas travel too, spreading this incredible technology even further.
And if you want some hard numbers on just how essential this technology became, get this. In 1086, a giant survey of England called the Domesday Book was completed. It listed 5,624 watermills. 100 years before that, there were less than 100. That's not just growth, that's an explosion. The water wheel had become a fundamental part of the economy. All right, so let's bring it all home. What's the real legacy of the wheel? I mean, why are we still talking about this ancient piece of tech today? Well, because its DNA is basically woven into everything we built since.
Here it is. This is the single most important idea. The water wheel was the first time we as a species proved that we could take a raw force of nature, the energy in a moving river, and turn it into useful mechanical work on a massive scale. It's the proof of concept for every engine, every generator, every power plant that followed. It's the granddaddy of them all.
I mean, you can literally draw a straight line through history. The water wheel cracks the code for kinetic energy. Then, the steam engine comes along and applies those same mechanical ideas to heat energy. And today's giant hydroelectric turbines, come on, they're just super advanced, hyper-efficient descendants of the original water wheel, using the very same principle to power our entire world. So, this all leaves me with one final, kind of mind-bending question. At the end of the day, the water wheel was a pretty simple concept that completely changed the world. So it makes you wonder, right? What are the simple innovations happening today? Maybe in code, or some new material, or a new way of thinking about energy that historians 2,000 years from now will look back on and say, wow, that's the thing that powered the future.